this is really cool. See so many friendly faces, familiar. We're like at my favorite place in the city. I'm a couple of blocks away from here. So this is just, I haven't been this excited in a really long time. So I wrote some little notes here. They want me to tell how this kind of came about. And I did a lot of traveling last year and speaking, and I felt like really appreciated by a lot of the people abroad. And we started planning this, and we started combing our ideas for like people we would love to hear speak from. And it was right around the time that the Black Forager, Alexis Nicole, spoke at Lawrence, and it was a great experience. It was really cool, but it left me wanting more from, honestly, Crystal Bradshaw, who introduced the Alexis Nicole. And I really wanted to hear more from, personally, myself, a lot of like local people, celebrities, hyper-local. I feel like we have some superstars here that kind of, are worth uplifting and highlighting. So the planning committee really kind of was open to hearing from all of us. So we've got Crystal Bradshaw, Alana Young, Casal, Pantaleon, Florez, and myself. And this is a panel that I would just really want to look at. I'm honored to be a part of it, but I really just wanted to see them myself. With that in mind, we wanted to give access to these people, but we also didn't want to tokenize or be extractive. We wanted to make sure that this was something that they all felt comfortable with. So it was really kind of an integrative process, and we kind of talked about how we wanted to do this and involve you all as well. So I'm just very appreciative to the panelists for rolling with us on this. Super appreciative to Cultivate KC and the planning team for kind of having to open a mind and letting us kind of be flexible. And really thankful to Ashley Williamson, who's going to moderate this event, for sitting down with all of us and kind of getting our take on it. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on over.
Okay, so I have a handful of topics that I'm crossing my fingers that we get through, but we have 5 amazing people that we're going to talk to today, and we're going to ask some questions to try to get through these topics. I'm hoping we'll also have a chance for some Q&A, so as you're listening, if any questions pop into your head, think about that so you can ask either at the end of this panel or when you see these folks during lunch or throughout the day. We're gonna pull up a opportunity for you guys to participate. This is called a Mentimeter, and what you do is go to menti.com on your phone, and you use that code at the top of the slide right there. Or you can try to capture that QR code. I think it's really important. We all are in this food system in different ways, and so your voices are important too. There's an opportunity for you to participate in a couple different ways, so this is going to be one of them. So that first question, what are 1 or 2 words to describe the current agri-food system in your communities? So if you are able, go ahead and go to mentimeter.com, use that QR code and put that in. There'll be one more question after this, but as you guys are putting that in, you're going to see your answers pop up, so we can kind of see this behind us. And I'm going to just have the one and only time we're just going to go straight down the line. I'm just going to ask them, how did you tell your name and who you are representing, and how did you get into this work?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Pantaleon Florez. He, him pronouns. Not Nicholas. It's probably Nicholas. Yeah, so I run Maseualkualli Farms in North Lawrence, just not too far away. How did I get into farming? I fell into it. I went to KU and got my master's in curriculum and instruction, thinking that I was going to be able to sit for the praxis and become a teacher. And I found out later at the end that they had lied about their program. So I ended up with a whole lot of debt, left the state of Kansas because it was still under Brownback, and ended up in California. I was teaching English mostly to migrants and refugees through some resettlement programs, was volunteering my time in a community food security nonprofit, and I guess I'd given so much time in there that they said, hey, do you want to be one of our co-directors? And so I got to apprentice under a couple farmers who've been in the game for 20, 30 years apiece for 3 years, and then in South Berkeley working on an urban nursery and an urban farm. And then came back to Kansas in 2018 to get started on my own venture. So that's how I got in. I fell in, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Panta. Casa?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yes. My name is Kaso, and I'm originally from Burma, and I came here in 2015, and Kansas the 2017, before the Illinois, and I wanna grow something in my mind, but I don't know how to do, and then I go in a Cultivate KC and a new program, and then last year I got graduate, and then right now I go Lauren market, and then still learning, and then today I am here, but I think I will learn something, but I am right now here, and then so thank you everyone.
Thank you, Panta. Crystal.
Crystal Bradshaw-Gonzalez. Hi, my name is Crystal Bradshaw-Gonzalez. I introduce myself in my traditional language, which is Yesasahi. I descend, from my mom's side, I descend from several Yesa Saponi nations, Monken Nation, Saponi Nation of Ohio, Halo Saponi, Okinachi-Bana Saponi. On my dad's side of the family, I am a person of African descent, and that is how I actually, I was born into farming, I guess. That's how I got into farming. I grew up with my dad's family in Western Kansas, and grew up farming and ranching with my grandpa and my father. And I guess just to tell a little bit of history, my dad's side of the family was, once they were emancipated around in 1878, 1879, they migrated from Kentucky. They were actually part of like what's called an exoduster movement. So they were exodusters, where they migrated from Kentucky all the way to Western Kansas, and they were part of, I don't like to call it a settlement, but some historians call it a settlement, but they were part of, I guess you call it a group. It was called Morton City, where it was just all people of African descent who were now free. And my family was part of that, and still live in that same area where that group was once at in 1879, 1878.
Thank you, Crystal.
Hello, good morning. Lots of lovely faces out there. Hi, my name is Alana. I'm with Young Family Farm. I'm also with Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council, which is a small nonprofit here in Kansas City. My story is sort of convoluted, to be honest. I kind of fell into urban ag and into farming. I started out in college, majored in broadcast journalism, and after graduating, I decided to teach. So I was in the classroom, like Panta. I taught primarily ESL learners in Texas, and that's where I lived for several years. Moved to Indiana, had a bunch of babies, stayed at home, did that whole thing. I opened my own business and worked with folks in the career field, folks that were interested in advancing their careers. I did lots of coaching sessions and worked on resumes. Again, nothing to do with urban farming. My folks, who I think had gotten bored after children left the house, expanded some plots that they had purchased for my siblings and I when we were children to have a place to play, and started growing. And when I would come back to visit, it was always larger than it was when I had previously left. And so that was my first really sort of serious dabble in growing. We had always had a small backyard garden, but it is definitely not that now. And then, circa 2019-ish, we recognized that we wanted to kind of put our work and our focus and energy into expanding farm operations. I would say that consistent in my life has been a desire to connect with people, to communicate with people, to help people with access. My family is very mission-driven, and that's something that's important to me. And even in my work in all these different industries, that was a part of who I am. And so now we grow on a larger farm plot that I think was originally intended, and I'm loving it, honestly loving it. A big part of what we do, in addition to growing and selling, which is the nature of the beast, is we do a lot of community outreach and youth involvement, which harkens back to, again, my sort of involvement in education, which is important to me. So, thank you. Oh, you're there.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Again, I'm Daniel Robinson. I am here with Groundwork Northeast Revitalization Group in Kansas City, Kansas. I started really, like a lot of people have said, I fell into it. I think that I was working at an herb store and they were like dried herbs, and also at the same time looking for something to help with my mental health. So exploring really anything I could, and just getting my hands in the ground really grounded me. So I kept coming back to it. I think a lot of my experience, starting with a lot of the community here, started with the guerrilla garden in protest in 2020 on July 4th. We had a bunch of people come out and protest across the street from a brand new police station that they just put here. So for me, it was like an initial form of resistance. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Daniel. All right, so let's take a look at this real quick. So we have described the food system in our communities. We have collaborative, growing, diverse, but we also have scarce, unknown, resilient, thriving. These are all the things that encompass the work that we do. So keep those in mind as we go through this panel. And I'll have the next one that is up. This is going to be up for the rest of the panel, so take your time answering this if you would like. But if there's one thing you could change to create your dream food future, what would that be? So we're going to leave that up for the rest of this panel, so take your time in answering that. I want to bring into the conversation the word intersectionality. Now, how many of you have heard of intersectionality? Show of hands. Okay. How many of you have heard of Kimberly Crenshaw, who is the one who coined that term? So intersectionality, as it sounds, is how race, gender, culture, all overlaps and intersects within our lives, and it affects how we show up, what we're involved in, and what we do, and how we move through the world. And it's very close to our identities and what we do. So I want to start with Crystal and tell us about how the different aspects of your intersectionality interact with your day-to-day, and your gender and your race.
Yeah, so definitely growing up as a female BIPOC farmer, that was pretty difficult. Just navigating a lot of things. I unfortunately did not grow up connected to my mom's culture. That was something I had to go on my own journey to go find. And so now I'm doing a lot of connecting that I grew up still doing, but it's in a different way now where I'm starting to understand some things that I kind of had questions about when I was younger, because my dad's side of the family isn't Native, but he still taught me a lot of things that he just learned just growing up farming. Like we don't use fertilizers. We use like a semi-no-till like system, and the only chemicals we would use at all was just like literally once a season, just kind of spray down to keep like weeds from just overgrowing the crops that we had, and then we also did a lot of different things like that. But so, and then gender-wise was interesting because it was just trying to navigate just being a female and identifying as a female, and a lot of that space is well, in Western Kansas it's very white, it's very male dominated, and just dealing with things from like just helping my dad just load up some farming supplies. Like I would get whistled at because I just bent over and had my butt up in the air while we were loading something up. And my dad didn't know how to handle that, and I didn't know how to handle it either, because it was just very weird. It was like we were just trying to do something to feed our family and to create a profit, and some random rednecky guy just liked my butt, I guess. And then too, being told that, but at the same time being told that I look too masculine. So like if I had my hair up in a bun with a cap on, you know, people would think I was a boy, or would crack, like, sadly, they would crack lesbian jokes. And even if I did identify as that, like that's, you know, either way, it's not okay. But I didn't identify that way, but it still was just problematic. So it's just like, you know, I had to start wearing my hair a certain way, or try to put jewelry on or something, some way to mark myself as like a female. And that's also problematic because when you're out there in the field working, like you don't want earrings, like these big old anti-earrings or whatever, because you'll get your whole ear ripped off. So yeah, I guess that's just kind of my experience.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Kasa, so from Burma to the Midwest, it's very different growing zones. How do you bring your culture into farming? How have you adapted it to living in Kansas, Missouri?
Yes, and you know, sorry about that. Yeah, my English is not very well, but I will try my best, and then like what I understand, and then like in Burma is the like the climate is like we had 3 May rainy, just 4 months rain, and then cool, no snow, and then is it cold, but winter time we call, and then summertime, and then 4 months, and then 3, and then so here is the like coming fall. Oh yeah, fall. I never hear that. Okay, and then like there is easy. We grow. You throw the seed and then water and then come. And then here is not like that, and then here I go that neuro program, and then they tell me like how to grow here, and then, that is it hard? And then I don't understand, and then okay, and then I try, and then they call rotation. Now what is the rotation? And then, like that, and then you know, and then climate is a very different. And then like one time I go to the parking lot, and then the lady is talking a lot, and then what she saying, and then my car is close to park car, and then she said, yesterday the like 40, and then this morning afternoon the 70, and then right now 10. She talked the bad word, you know. Oh really? That everybody not like very hard. Not that time I mentioned everyone like how different the climate in the United States, and then I spread before I like very, how to say, I don't know, I didn't notice how my feeling, but everyone that noticed, and then so here is the like they like I say they, and it's a new roof, okay, new roof the program they teach us that a lot, and then after that, oh yes, I need to focus, and then I focus, and if I don't understand, we have like class every week 2 times and 3 times sometimes, and then some. So I go YouTube a lot. Yes, I go YouTube, and then there is like I saw a lot of people, and then they share, and then like I learned a lot there also, and then so. But one thing that I want to see is the in Kansas State or Kansas City. I don't see the YouTube, so if you can please make it. I will be the first subscriber. Thank you.
I think everyone would benefit from your YouTube university too. So, Daniel, as you're developing the Northeast Grocer project, what are you bringing from your own personal background to inform your work?
Sorry, it's just really it was really challenging because we're working with environmental remediation, working with brownfields. So some of that is like me learning on the go. And because we don't have a building, we don't really have a place to gather, we don't really have a place to have people meet, but there is a garden right next door, Righteous Roots garden in the house. Where's Mr. and Mrs. So we've been able to kind of use some like kind of radical outreach, barbecues and things at the garden, and like different growing kind of classes to engage with people, to bring them to the site where the garden is, and they can literally see the grocery store right next door.
Thanks, Daniel. So land access, this is an issue for everybody that everyone has experienced. We'll start with Panta. What's the story behind you getting some of your own plots?
Yeah, so California got really expensive. I mentioned I live in California. Decided to come home. So Kansas has been home for my entire life. And in Lawrence, we have this thing called the Incubator Farm program, and it's run by our Common Ground program, which is like all of our community gardens, and they have a 6-acre site that is for beginner farmers, and it's in wonderfully, really tilty North Lawrence soil, and you get to lease land from them at the rate of $100 per acre per year, and then also pay your water bill. So we have municipal water out there, even though we have our own meters. And so that program was really the only way I was going to get access to land with where I was at. And I'm just really thankful for that. We kind of have had a bit of a back and forth with the organizers of that site too, because we were originally only allowed to have 3-year leases. And I kind of let them know, if I'm going to invest in the soil, if I'm going to do all this stuff sustainably, if I'm going to like be financially stable, I'm going to need some really interesting high value added products. I'm going to need to be here for a lot longer than that, and you want me here for a lot longer than that. And so through a bunch of conversations over like 3 years, just this past year, they decided to give us indefinitely renewable leases. So we actually have land out there for all of us for as long as we need it. Yeah, and it's a great model. I mean, essentially it's taking the land management burden off of in this case, a city and a county, and then passing that stewardship on to people who are trying to feed folks. So ultimately strengthening the local food system. And so it's a really awesome program. It's the Common Ground program in Lawrence. Definitely encourage you to take a look at that if you want to learn more.
Thank you, Panta. Alana, your family is basically running Youngville off of 38th and Wayne. So can you tell us how that came to be?
Yeah, Youngville, yeah. Well, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but in the area where I grew up and where I currently live, there were challenges for youth to have places to play. This was before Harris Park was built, which is a great park, by the way. Chris Harris is an awesome person. And my parents purchased some land to allow for my siblings and I and neighborhood kids to play, a safe place to play. That's how some of the first original lots were purchased. My parents are researchers and are pretty well connected folks, and as time went on and their endeavors in farming grew, they also purchased some other properties in the area and some other lots in the area. I can't speak for them, but I think one of their dreams for their children was to pass on some assets and some homes to their children. And so as opportunity presented itself, they had squirreled away money and purchased those. And now we have a little Youngville. We've got, our farm is broke up into several sort of smaller plots. Our largest, our main site is on the corner of 39th and Wayne. And then we have another site on Highland, corner of 39th and Highland. We have one on Highland on 38th, and we have one on East 39th. And we have another plot on Michigan that we're working to get into production, which is a challenge. And we all sort of live like little ducks in a row. I live in one house, my uncle lives in the next house, my parents live in the next house, my brother lives in the next house. And I know that sounds strange, but we actually love it. You know, closeness to family, to community. I think that as a society, if we were able to get back to that sort of structure, we would probably all be healthier people. And so, you know, if I need a break from the kids, I call my mom up and say, hey, they're on the way. You know, and so we get to go out to the farm. Some of you, many of you in the crowd have come to visit us at the farm, and you know that you can call one of the Youngs and someone's at the house and can meet you out back. And that's kind of the vibe that we have going on there. And I spoke to Ashley about this a few weeks back. For us, it's not really about creating a Youngville, although that is kind of a fun outcome. But really our desire would be for other folks to create their own Smithville and their own Harrisville and their own whateverville, wherever you live, to kind of bring back that sense of closeness and connection and community to help with increasing food access and to really become healthier people in the many ways that can manifest itself. So I hope I answered your question. I tend to kind of just.
Show of hands, how many of you have been to Young Family Farm? Awesome.
Oh.
If you haven't been there, get there. It's an amazing spot. So Casa, tell us about Casaville. You have some land. Tell us about how that came to be.
Oh yes, thank you. And like 2017, I here in Kansas City, and then like I moved from Illinois. So I'm looking for around the big land, and I want to go farming. So and then I go the west side, and then good for me. The land is very expensive, and I take 3 years, and I can find. And then my brother said, this year, if you can find, I will buy myself. And then so okay, and then I'm running, and then right now I got my house is 94, and then Kansas City, Kansas, and then is a half acre, and then include house. So around quarter acre I have land there. And then my brother, after that, my brother's buying house, and then so there is half and quarter also. And then still I'm from Europe, quarter acre, so I got that. And then one thing that's very good for me is that sometimes I taught it. I talk a lot in the farmer market, and then so the customer coming, and then I tell my story. They ask me, and then so I tell what I need and what happened here. And so in the lorry market, the lady, and then I forgot her name, sorry. And then she said, you can use my yard, and then I have apartment, and then there is 3 acre, and then I pay cut the grass, so you come, and then so okay, and then next year, and then is it one person, and then right now, and 6109, and then they call Jim, I think, and then he also offered me, and then for chicken, and then like that, because sometimes like they wanna help us, so I don't know, very for everyone. You know, like sometimes I think because of me is from Asia and then like I'm new people and came here refugees, so they wanna have more than other people, I think. And then so like right now, and the land is the very fast, the first when I came here, the very hard to find land. But right now I got land, and but I know how to manage. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And Crystal, your family story is a little different. Can you tell us a little about that?
Like related to land, or I'm sorry. Okay. Well, so my family, our land's been passed down, obviously from generations. I think it was my times 3, times 4 great-grandma. She was the one who was the first free person on my dad's side of the family. I want to say free person, let me reword that. She was not, she was able to get out of slavery because my family's always been free. I don't care if someone tried to own them or not. My family's always been free. So she was the leader who led my family, I guess I'll say that, to Western Kansas. And she was the first family member on my dad's side of the family that we know who owned land. I actually went to the county courthouse and found the records that had her name on it, and that was a very emotional moment. So it's just like, sorry, I'm gonna start crying. So some of that same land still my family, and unfortunately some of it's been sold away. Just for different reasons. I had a great uncle who liked to fight white people. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it, but and so he was always getting thrown in jail, and my great grandpa had to go bail him out all the time. And finally, I guess the white community had enough of him and was like, we're gonna attach this huge like fee to get him out. And so my great grandpa unfortunately had to sell some of that land and to get him out. And but yeah, that's how my dad's family has their land. My mom's traditional lands are over in North Carolina and Virginia, and I was actually able to go visit them for the very first time actually this summer, July 2023. And that was a very, I don't want to say it, but just a very sacred, a very super important moment. So it's just, I'll start crying again, sorry. It was just a story of how my mom's family was forced away from there, and just being there and just knowing that my ancestors, some of my ancestors' prayers were answered that day, and just I have 2 little children, having them touch the soil, it was just so powerful. And like, we don't own any land over there, but that land is still ours. It's always been ours. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how our family was forced away from there. That land is still ours, and it's always been ours. And just having relatives who welcomed us back was so powerful, and all the work they're doing over there, as a nation, to reclaim a lot of our foods, our language, and I actually had the honor of being part of that this year. I finally have my traditional corn. Woo! I'm helping to grow it this summer, and it's just because that corn, the story of that corn is, unfortunately, like our tribes, we almost got wiped out, and because we're Southeastern, so of course we were one of the first people to get hit. And at one point, there's only about 300 of us left that was counted, and we were held over at Fort Christiana in Brunswick, Virginia, and they basically said because our numbers were so low, they cut the treaty that they had with us and told us that we no longer existed, and our corn survived by us intermarrying with other tribes, but then also creating our own communities. So just being able to get that corn and just knowing its story is amazing. And the personal land I have is I have a little homestead, and it's not like a fancy farm or nothing. Like I don't have people come out or anything. It's just something I'm continuing doing, just especially for my dad's side, because that's how they grew up, was growing their own food. So I plan on planting that corn on that land.
Thank you, Kristen. I want to pick up this thread when we're talking about like our purpose and our passion and how meaningful it was to get those seeds. I'm gonna pass it over to Panta because you also have some stories about corn.
Yeah, so my great-grandfather was born in Guanajuato, Mexico, and he came over with his brother escaping political persecution as an indigenous person, to then be told at the U.S. border, leave your culture there or your children's children will suffer. That's the story that I've been told, that they were told that. And so they left everything. There's the perspective I'm coming at this from is very much of a diaspora. It's very much like, oh, I planned that. We went into the darkness. We knew nothing. It was taken from us. And slowly and gradually, we came back. And so when I started my own farm in North Florence in 2018, I knew that I had some reclamation work that I wanted to do, and I'd been already researching and trying to figure out, find primary resources from indigenous Mexican people. And oftentimes what you'll find are resources from conquistador, Spanish colonizer lens that are, really, it's hard to rely on them, right? Because they start out like, by the hand of God, we murdered these people and took their information down. And here's this book that we stuck in the Vatican Library for a really long time. And so, in my research when I was living in California, I had access to libraries that actually had information about indigenous Mexican cultures, and I'd never had that, living in Kansas my whole life. And find all these things about the Spanish lenses, and then you read research papers about them, you look at footnotes, you find citations, and you follow those trails, and eventually led to finding a codex from the 1500s that was written and illustrated by indigenous Mexican people. The other thing that's really hard about that is that it's not like we didn't record our own information, but oftentimes the Spanish would give those documents to their kids to play with as toys. The Aztec calendar, for example, was nearly burned just because they gave it to a kid to play with, and the copies of it today, you can still see the burn marks on some of the corners of it. And so I got really deep into that research, and then really just didn't know where to go from there because I don't have contact with anyone in Mexico. I don't know who to go to. I kind of know where-ish to go to, but that really only gets you so far. And so I found the GRIN Global Project, which is the seed banks, USDA seed banks and seed banks across the entire world. Started doing research on there because you can actually search geographically for seeds. And then found some accessions that were that I just felt really drawn to, that were from Guanajuato. And I'm on my fourth season now growing a elote conico, corn, which is purple and white speckled kernel corn that's a flower corn. And it also, it was really amazing to be able to reclaim that and hold that. And I've actually expanded into, I also have a peanut, a squash, and a landrace snow pea that are also from Guanajuato. And so I focus a lot on the seed breeding and stewardship stuff now on the farm. So yeah, it's a long time and footnotes on footnotes, and glad to be where I'm at right now.
So getting into this work, it takes a lot of mentors and mentorship and generational and ancestral knowledge and people and community. So Daniel, who have been some of your biggest supporters and mentors in this food systems work?
Goodness, they're not gonna like this because they're like in the crowd, but for sure Sharon has helped me a little bit. She was the farmer that I took over the farm for, and as I took over the farm, there was a note for me that only I could see that basically said I was the farmer when I doubted myself. So I went back to that a lot. Alicia Ellingsworth taught me a whole hell of a lot. The KC Farm School period just was like a gauntlet for learning information. Rick Moreski and Regina Comprenol let me like just go and play on their land like a big kid, really. Anna Asteroid taught me a whole heck of a lot. Really a lot of the young farmers, Jameson from Dirt Beast, anybody who would let me ask questions and not get annoyed, like I'll try to learn from, so.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on mentors and?
I mean, I can go on here and ad-lib it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of amazing folks here in this room. I think for me, of course, first and foremost, I learned from my parents, who learned from their people. My mother is from the South, from Texas, and agriculture was a big part of her life growing up. She grew up in a very rural, small-town area where they had all sorts of, a much larger farm operation than we have now. Hogs and chickens and the sort. And then in terms of Kansas City, there's a lot of folks here in this room. I think about the great work of Cultivate KC, of Kansas City Community Gardens, of folks who've come in and out of those organizations in different ways and supported the farm. I will say that I can speak on behalf of my family. There have been so many amazing people come volunteer at the farm. And I always appreciate that. I'm very much a learner. I do not profess to be an expert in urban farming by any stretch of the imagination, and I've learned from so many great people in this room. So I'm thankful for those experiences.
Excellent.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely Daniel Miller and Don Conchan Hunter out in Berkeley, California, as my first two mentors, not only on starting things in the nursery, getting them over to the farm, but also community and people power. There's a lot of really rich history out of the Bay Area. I'll also mention Joy Moore. She was on our board, a member of the former Black Panther Party, and so I got to learn a lot from those folks about organizing and the potential energy of getting a bunch of people together and getting stuff done.
Thank you. So in the land of YouTube University and these terms of permaculture and food forests, a lot of them have deep histories. So can we, does anyone want to comment on how knowledge gets rediscovered and things that we should be aware of as we're learning new practices?
I was gonna say probably everything that's new that's coming out is from some indigenous group. Like Indigenous Africa, Indigenous Asia, Indigenous Native American, Indigenous Mexico, like that's from us. So, just keep that in mind. I always do try to encourage people, because we all at one time had our own practices, and so I always do encourage people to try to find what your ancestors were doing, and just because I think it's so important to let that go back to the people, the practices that it belongs to. But it's also like, that's how those practices survived, right? Was by us sharing. So it's kind of, I go back and forth, I don't know. Because I don't mind sharing some stuff, but some stuff I do keep just for me, because it's so important that I fought to get that back. So I don't know, just.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I also go back and forth on that. Like, how much do we share with them? No, like how much do you have to hold quiet, and is it safe yet? Right? Because we're still in these massive colonial systems that are continuing genocide all around the world, and so you have that hesitancy, right? That's just like, I can definitely share it with my people in my community, but how far out do you go with that? And that's just about building relationships with people. I know there was a Smithsonian article that came out a couple years ago that was like, we've discovered a symbiotic relationship in corn, and I'm like, dude, what? And if anybody's, I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but there's a lot of heirloom varieties, landrace varieties, ancient indigenous varieties of corn have a symbiotic relationship with a bacteria, and the corn has genetics within it to release a gel on its aerial roots. The aerial roots attract that bacteria eats nitrogen out of the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, processes it, and then feeds it to the corn directly. And I would have a hard time saying that even like my people 10,000 years ago discovered it, because those two discovered each other first. Like, the bacteria in that corn found each other before we were even the way we're classed now in Latin, or however we're classed as humans. And so it's just like, yeah, a lot of these things aren't even, are any of them even human discoveries to some extent, right? It's just like, that natural world formed itself way before we were here, and I hope it gets to outlive us, no matter what happens to us, because it deserves it. But yeah, it's just, when you see narratives about discovery coming from giant institutions like the Smithsonian, for example, just question it, right? That's one thing I want to encourage people to do, and figure out where it's coming from, and like, side-eye it a little for me, please. Yeah.
I can say a couple words on that. Yeah, I mean, my feelings are very similar to what Kanta and Crystal shared, which is a sense of being torn. How much information is too much? What are the motivations of the person seeking the information? How will they attribute the source of said information? The story behind our logo here at Young Family Farm is that passing down of information from our ancestors. And many of you in the room, of course, know the story of what happened to Indigenous peoples that were here, and of course to folks who were stolen from their homeland. That information was taken, was stolen from them. The knowledge of how to work the land, of how to handle crops, was stolen and was used for someone else's benefit. And some of the discoveries, quote unquote, from Indigenous peoples and knowledge that they had been passing down for generations was never attributed to them, or they're not shown in the history books, or you've got to do like what Panta did and go way back and look at footnote after footnote to figure out who deserves sort of the accolades for that. So yes, definitely torn. I think it's important, to kind of question your motivations. And whenever in doubt, it probably was sourced from Indigenous people. So I think you can probably kind of leave that as your foundation. So I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, just like kind of bringing it back home to the name of the panel, the determining our own food futures. And I think that it's super important to like look up here and then look in the crowd, and like, I think probably the only organization that I've seen that's done it, I think everybody in here is probably trying their best to do so, but is the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, because we look in that room, we're in that room. If we are allowed to be in that room, it's just people that are black and brown that look like us. They had up and coming co-op conference day. It's a weekend. It's actually a conference that I went to because we're trying to put a co-op over there in Kansas City, Kansas. The first day of that conference is Black-led day. If you're not black, like, you can't be in the room. You know what I'm saying? And it's important because there are conversations that we have when we're with each other about this that we're not having with you all, because we do need to keep some of that stuff close to our chest because we've seen what's happened. And like, even though we are all probably, a lot of us are trying our best to be intentional about how we interact with this, it still gets very extractive. We're still in a system that is bigger than all of us here.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Let's talk a little about food futures and dreams. Kasa, we'll start with you. So you said earlier kind of the now food is business a little bit. And how, what are some things that you are hopeful for in your life in regards to food?
Okay, yeah. What I understand, I will answer, now. Yeah, here is the like, how to say that, in our, like, in Burma, like model, and then, but there is the first thing that for food, and then for living, and then after clothes. And then so the food is very important. And then, like, for example, right now, if I don't have clothes, it's not very problem, but cool. So it's a problem also. But not the first thing. And then in car or something like that, that is the second or third way. And then food. And right now, if I don't have food, I will cry immediately. I will do something, might be crying. And then that's like that. And the food is very important for us, for everyone. So that's why I go and I try for like business, like I would say business, but that's why my mind is coming for growing veggie and food, something like that. And then so, yeah, I try, and then, but the food is very important, but and then I grow the market, and then I doing the growing veggie, and then, but when I selling, it's not very good, not very good for like profit, because there is a food, modern food is probably like the flour, and then so, and then right now like sometimes I tried last year, and then a little bit the food is a little bit down, and then flour is up, like something like that. I try 50-50 something, 60-40 something like that, and then for business very important for living food, but profit is a little bit hard. So wish for me. Thank you.
Kasa, what kind of flowers are you growing?
Oh yeah, and then it's a cut flower, and then a lot of sunflower, and then like zinnia, and then like I try a lot, but sometimes the dahlia and then perennial is expensive. So like step by step, and then like perennial, I never hear before, but right now I hear, like I learn like YouTube. Thank you.
YouTube University. And we have some educators on our panel, and Panta, Alana, how does being an educator play into thinking about food and future?
Yeah, I mean, we need more farmers, right? It's like, what, 2% of the country or something like that knows how to grow stuff, and I would venture to guess a solid 1.9% of that is commodity growing, and not things that we need to put on the table every day to be really healthy human beings. And so, I mean, yeah, I also work for Lawrence Public Schools. I'm our farm to school coordinator 40% of the time, and I really want to push our ag programs, career and technical education classes, to see which students really want to get into agriculture, and then set them up way better information-wise than I was when I started, because that, once you have a specific power or knowledge set, it's your responsibility to pass that on to other people.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ashley. I would say that for me, it's important to work with young people, and really the community at large. But I think folks come to Young Family Farm, they see a large operation, and they get overwhelmed and think, oh gosh, I can't do this. And so what I hope for the future is for folks to recognize that they have the capability of doing something small. Getting involved in the local ag system does not mean you have to have a gigantic operation. I would encourage folks to take back that power. I would encourage folks to reach out to someone in the community to learn how to do something small at home. It does not have to be big to still be powerful. Thinking about kind of the point that Crystal was making, and don't diminish your small farm. I don't think you did, but the idea that it has to be grandiose to bring value. I mean, she's got such a wonderful story about her ancestors and the way that her farming operation pays homage to them, and how significant some of the crops that you're growing are to you, your family, and your history. And I hope that kind of future for everyone, really. You don't have to emulate anyone else. Just do the best you can yourself. And so when kids come to Young Family Farm, or tourists come, or visitors come, what we try to focus on is starting small. And my father always says, never doubt humble beginnings. My mom says often, you can eat a whole elephant if you take one bite at a time. And so, not discounting something small. And that's the future that I hope really for everyone, because it's important. 2% of people know how to grow your own food. Food is foundational. That was the point that Kasa was making. We've got clothes, we've got cars, we can have all these other things, but every single one of us in this room has to eat. Every one of us. And if we can't feed ourselves, how can we really even advocate for ourselves? And so growing food is radical. And so I love kind of the points that Daniel was making. It's a radical act to even know how to grow your own food.
Yeah, and I want to add on there, I think another thing that's important, I'm thinking of myself also as an educator. When I'm at market, I'm teaching people about all these different things that they've never tried. Like, how many people in the room have ever had papaloquilit or pipiche? That's what we used before the Spanish brought cilantro, because cilantro's not Mexican. Right? Okay, so also bringing cultural awareness and sharing that with you all and everyone else who's not of my culture, whatever, is super important. And then I was a kitchen manager for years. I've always loved cooking, teaching people how to cook things properly. So story time, dim the lights, we're going back to 1500s again. When Europeans first took corn back to Europe, they did not listen about how to actually eat it. And 1 million people died. Lights down. Yeah, no. Literally, 1 million people died of pellagra because they didn't listen and weren't educated, didn't care to be educated by people who they didn't consider human, about how to actually eat the thing that we've been eating for 10,000 years. And 1 million people died. And so, teaching people, I got to just teach nixtamalization to culinary 2 students at Lawrence High a couple weeks ago. Learning that process, if you're not familiar with it, corn, if you eat it without processing it in this way, will rob your body of B vitamins, and if you eat enough of that and do that enough, you will die of pellagra. And so the other educational component I'm getting here isn't just that one of how to actually process it, it's also undemonizing things that were literally demonized, because what happened was they saw 1 million people died, Christian good people, right? And they were eating this thing that was from these, insert negative word here, people that weren't considered people. And they said, well, that food must be of the devil because those people are the devil, and corn was literally demonized. And so the educational components that I also see are undemonizing our foods, because those foods led massive, very successful civilizations for very long periods of time. And corn is not just a trash thing that should get turned into syrup and plastics and biofuel. Okay.
So, growing and farming and doing this work is not easy. It's a grind. It's a business. It is work. Although we get something from it, right? It is work, and it's hard work. So just a little advice on how do you take care of yourselves in this hard work?
I was gonna say, someone the other day had told me that we don't always have to do the things that our ancestors had to do to survive. And that kind of hit me really hard, because I've been doing all this farm work just for myself, and it's been running me ragged, you know, and I grew up farming like as a community, you know, at least my grandpa and my dad, but now it's just me, because my homestead's in Northeast Kansas, and so I don't have my grandpa anymore. He passed away, and I don't have my dad there all the time helping me. Just for me, self-care is like just being aware of how much I can handle, and when it transitions from being therapeutic and healthy to extremely stressful and just financially just not. So I just, for myself, self-care was realizing that I needed to downsize, and I needed just to focus on very specific things, and so just shifting my focus more to, okay, what can I do? I can grow my traditional corn, I can learn how to do all these other things, and then I can give up, you know, I can give up being a sheep farmer, I can give up having chickens, I can give up having ducks, you know, and that hurts, like how much food I can provide for myself, but it helps my, it's a form of mental self-care is what I'm trying to say, so.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because we hear self-care and sometimes we think about like taking a bubble bath, but it can also mean downsizing and making sure that you can take care of yourself and your own mental well-being. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
Yeah, one of the things for me was quitting farmers markets. Quitting farmers markets. It was, I loved the educational component. I loved a lot of things about it, and I really wanted to help shift mindsets of people who came there about, like, I don't have to be a freaking grocery store. I don't have to have 6 colors of carrots, 5 colors of peppers, and literally everything under the sun, because, like, you will run yourself into the ground trying to meet that demand. So my friends, to these farmers and other farmers, let people know we're not grocery stores. Let us specialize in a couple things that will be even more amazing, and will also help lower our mental stress of thinking about how we cut the Achilles heel of the farmer next to us because we think we have to, right? And we're in these environments where everyone expects everything right now brought to their door. And go farm and try to run 50 different crops in a year, in a half a year, and then another 50 in another half, or second half of the year. You will also not like that model at all. And so, yeah, it's just, I think, yeah, again, it's the same thing. It's reducing what I'm doing to focus on what's super important for me. You know, 2 years ago, my partner gave birth to our daughter. And I was very fortunate to get to be primary caregiver for like the first 9 months of her life. So it was 3 hours of farming in the morning, and then 9 to the next 6 a.m., whatever needed to be done with my kid. And I'm super lucky and happy for that. And that showed me which part of the work was most important to me. And that was the seed stewardship and focusing on the crops of my ancestors, and not trying to find markets for things that are in heavy competition that I'm not even that enthusiastic about, and just kind of like focusing myself a lot. So that year really taught me how to focus, and in letting a whole bunch of things fall away, that weight went with it.
I would say for myself, and also I could probably speak for several of us at Young Family Farm, we have, I think, done a great job of allowing us to thrive in our own strengths and our own talents. And I think getting back to that idea of creating a more communal growing experience has helped, I think, with the self-care. Crystal brought up a great point of trying to do it all herself, and how really that's an impossible task. And so for us, kind of growing in that family structure has allowed us more freedom and more flexibility to say, like, hey, I'm tapping out, I can't do that today. I need to take a break today for whatever reason, or I have other obligations today. And so there's not as much, although there's definitely that pressure, there isn't as much of that pressure, knowing if I'm not the person going out there, it's not gonna happen. And my stuff will die. So I would encourage folks, if you have people who live near you, or you have family that's near you, and you wanna take a stab at growing some produce and growing some food, then maybe doing that as a collaborative. Tap into some sort of collaborative.
I think for me, it's working adjacent to food stuff. So I'm not growing for anyone currently. I just kind of do what I want at my house because it makes me feel good. But like working with different organizations that are like dedicated to helping us, that fulfills me. You know what I mean? So I can just leave a meeting and go to my backyard and put my hands in the dirt, and that still is like quite righteous to me. So.
Yes, and like, it is not answer, when my struggle, like sometimes everyone joke me because a lot of weeds, and in my farm, because sometimes I would say my community not very big, but close friends that I help them. They have appointment, and then I go, and then I lose 2 hours, 3 hours, and then that 2 hours, 3 hours, okay, I'm bad, and then rain or something happen, and then we the very fast, is not with me, and then they fast, and then like after the and I ask them, and then sometimes they come and clean, and then just like it's very difficult for me. I don't want to go. I don't want to help the people, and then I want to do this, but like they're very emergency level like that, and then they don't know English, something like that. So, and then I don't have answer. That very hard for me right now, and then like last year I tried a little bit tarp, and I lay it, and I made hole, and then underneath like drip pipe, and then so there the last week, and then maybe I will go this way, that way, and then so I will help the friend, and then they will come back, and then they help me, and then a lot help me. That sometimes I don't know how to cut that big tree, and then they come and they do it for me. That's so, and then that's time I rest, and then thank you.
Yeah. So asking for help, cutting out what doesn't work, leaning into community, all things we can do to take care of ourselves. So before we take questions, I just want to offer opportunity for anything else about our food future, things that you would like to see. We all answered that question in the beginning. What do we want our food futures to look like? Is there something that you would like to see in our policies or in our food systems? Yes.
I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want to be labeled as a troublemaker. But I was gonna say reparations for. On reparations. Okay, I'll pass it on to
Reparations, period. That's it.
I think I would personally love to see just look a lot more of little black and brown growers in these audiences, in these classes. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm going to speak kind of broadly, but I think we really need to advocate for the removal of so much red tape that's associated with providing for ourselves and our families. And that's going to look differently if we talk about city level, we talk about the state, we talk about federal. It is too hard for people to grow food. And food is foundational. And as we talked about extensively in this panel, so many of these practices have been passed down for generations over tens of thousands of years. And it shouldn't be that hard for me to go out to my yard and grow something for my family. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, it's an idea I've been working on for a few years called food as a public work. So if we think about the way that we currently feed food insecure people, it's a consumptive model, right? It's one that is super important to a lot of people's lives. It's one that saved my life for a couple of years when I didn't have money to buy food, pay the bills and rent and all that. But there's also 30 years of evidence, which is quite longitudinal, that the food insecure population maintains itself between 11 and 14%. Literally changing nothing. Like, it's super important. Any SNAP educators in the office, please don't come find me after this. It's happened many times when I say this. SNAP is super important. It needs to be there. And we need to start reimagining. So food as a public work would shift consumptive model of SNAP, and this can be done alongside SNAP. I swear I'm not trying to kill the thing, help me survive. And start funding the production of food, right? And so, yes, please. So the way that this looks in my mind, a pilot of this could be done for 0.25% of the city of Lawrence's budget. So that's how much money we're talking. So about $1.2 million. There are 300 acres that the city already owns that it leases to monocrop people. The money is there, the land is there. That's what that means. We would hire 12 food systems workers, 9 or 10 of whom would be 100% dedicated to production, to just have a wage similar to what we pay other people in the county to manage land, noxious weed specialists, parks managers, like what we already pay people. Justification for paying people to do stuff, land is already there. And they just grow food for direct resource, period. I don't have to worry about marketing. I don't have to worry about like having an Instagram ready farm. I just have to focus myself on growing as much as I possibly can to give 100% completely away. And when I've talked and crunched numbers with other farmers who have much larger operations than I do, for that $1 million in, you can produce between $4 to $5 million worth of food. All these middle people are gone. This is literally me working with local organizations who are boots on the ground, working with our local food banks, not just those Feeding America giant ones that tend to hoard resources, food banks. Shots fired, I know. I've literally got death threats for talking about this idea, like I'm not kidding you. And so that's how you know it's probably a decent one. Because when I mentioned, 30 years, we have 30 years of evidence that 11 to 14% of the population is still hungry despite what we're doing. Yes. Longitudinal evidence of one of two things. The first is it's not working. The second is it's working like it's supposed to, which is the one that I believe. it's working as it's supposed to. It's working to keep a class of people stuck and down and in positions of disempowerment. And so food as a public work is something I really strongly believe in. Our Douglas County Food Policy Council wrote a letter of support for it recently. And there's a couple other groups who are looking to put it into some plans, into some planning. And, you know, I also, like I said, I work for a school district. We're up to $70,000 in school lunch debt. We don't send our kids away or have them not eat. But when I think about food as a public work, and I think about, you know, we spend $2.6 million on food, could food as a public work also just get local food directly to our children? And then directly to the children in those low-income, low-access, distressed community index schools, right? So many benefits from that. The land is there, the money is there. I just need some political will to get there.
Yeah. We're gonna switch to Q&A. We're gonna just take a couple questions before we dismiss for lunch. But before we do, if you are hosting an activity during the resource sharing sessions, you can get up and get to the front of the lunch line now. So if you are doing that, you can do that now. Okay, so we're gonna take some questions. Raise your hand if you have one.
There's not really a question, but I want to make a statement. I think a lot of you will be interested in this. I'm Joe Wall, the State Director of the Farm Service Agency for Missouri. We're part of USDA, and I'm happy to announce that Kansas City has been designated as one of the official urban ag pilot cities for USDA. There are only 27. There are only 27 federal urban ag pilot cities in the United States. We've got 2 up in Missouri, both Kansas City and St. Louis. And I know there are a lot of neat things going on with urban ag right now. But this is going to provide some education, some financial resources, some things to help you all out that want to venture into urban ag. And the neat thing about it, this includes both Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. I think we're the only city in the United States that has a city on each side of the state line. So we're very happy about that. We have a booth here today. We hope you come by and see us. And the thing I'm seeing about urban ag, it's providing opportunities for a lot of what we call underserved producers. A lot of young folks, a lot of African Americans, and a lot of females. People we don't traditionally see involved all that much in ag. So we're glad to see that. And just think, if every city in the United States will start producing more vegetables, more fruits, healthy food, think what that would do to the food supply in our country. So we're very excited that urban ag is coming to Kansas City, even bigger than it is right now. A lot of neat things going on already here, but I think this is really bright for our future.
Thank you. All right, anybody got a question for the panel? Right here. I'll repeat your question.
Okay. I just wanted to start with the whole panel, but when the question came up about how much to share, especially of indigenous practices or things from our heritage, I wanted to encourage, especially you, Crystal, because you seem to be kind of hesitant about having made that admission. But I even think about, you know, my mother clinging to, you know, a recipe, a special recipe or something. I think some of those things are ours to keep. And I just wanted to encourage you all to talk just a little bit further. There is a delineation, and I think it can be very personal. And you may receive some criticism, but I don't know that anybody else can determine for you where that release is.
Yeah, so a little bit of question about what to keep and what to share and where that delineation is.
Okay, so I'm trying to think about that one. Did you have something?
All yours.
So it's so hard because I know even between nations, like we don't share. I mean,
people think just because you're Native, like you share everything with every other Native. Like, no, we have our own separate things that we will share with each other, but we still have our own things that we just kind of keep within our own nation. I don't know, that's hard for me because it's like, I guess it would come to a point of like, so like seed sharing, you know, that's a big one. So like right now, I don't feel okay sharing my ancestral seeds because of the small amount we have. And just like we have tribal members who don't even have access to those seeds because this is how small numbers we have. But you know, if it gets to a point where, first of all, the tribal members are prioritized, kind of like Cherokee Nation, you know, they do something similar, but they give out seeds to tribal members, and then any they have left over, they will open, I guess, for like other people to have access to. But it's mainly prioritizing the nation first. So I mean, I guess for that example would be with my ancestral seeds, just like right now I don't feel comfortable sharing them. I don't really even want anybody touching them. I'm so protective of them. Because they just made it so far to get to me. And I'm just like, all right, you guys are my babies. Like, So I don't know. I don't know how to really answer that. I think it's just based off of trust, really knowing that that person's not going to take something from you, even unintentionally, because I do just feel like BIPOC folks, we've had so much taken away from us that sometimes we will take unintentionally, and it's just trying to be aware of like making sure that we're not doing that to each other. And it's just, I don't know. It's a hard
Thank
question.
you. Yeah, that was good. Pantaleon.
Yeah, so I think for me it comes down to relationship and responsibility as two things to check in with myself about. Like, do I have a relationship built on reciprocity with this person, organization, group, whatever? Or do I have a responsibility to this person, group, or whatever? And so like responsibility-wise, for example, I taught nixtamalization to Culinary 2 students. I'm in a position of power as the district experiential learning specialist to bring these students all kinds of cultural enriching experiences. And so I felt that, you know, those Culinary 2 students are there. They went through Culinary 1. They want to be there as cooks. They want to learn these things. And so I had that responsibility then to take them way beyond what they probably wouldn't even learn at culinary school, if I'm really real. And so there was a responsibility. And then, you know, really just, do I have a built relationship? And is that a relationship that isn't extractive? And then go from there. And that takes a long time to get to that point a lot of times. But that's super important for me. And then, yeah, I, like Crystal was saying, like I even hesitate for people to touch some of the things. So like in Mexica culture, the word for kernel and child is the same. Those are our children. You know, corn is a very giving and birthing entity. And so yeah, that's where you really have to have relationship, because I've had so many people say like, where can I buy your seeds? Where can I get your stuff? Where can I take your children? Yeah. How much for a pound of your children? And so like, yeah, I mean, it's what Crystal already said. It's relationship and trust, and then really just checking in with yourself to make sure that you are being responsible. Also, if you have responsibilities to others.
Yeah. Okay, so in keeping time, can we just, this getting up on stage like this and sharing is very vulnerable. And I just want to give opportunity to give them a hand. There is plenty of time for questions after this, during lunch. Talk to each other about the things that you've learned. ask them questions as we, continue to network and be together in this space. A couple things before lunch. We do encourage you to continue to chat with each other, be curious, look up the things that they've talked about, research it on your own, and continue to lean into YouTube University. I love that. And as you go out to lunch, you can find a place to eat anywhere in this building. So as you grab your plate, you can have seating through the whole area. At 12:15, the resource sharing sessions will open. There is a QR code on the program. I don't think the paper program that has a full list of participants in the resource room, collaboration corner, hands-on hangout, and the seed and supply swap. We'll meet back here at 1:30 for door prizes, and you must be present to win. And Giving Grove donated some liquid fish, so I know you want that. And then we'll have a poetry reading and reflection by Miguel and Morales for closing words. So we'll see you back here at 1:30 and enjoy your lunch.